Welcome to the podcast, where street smart, business smart, all kinds of smart people share their insights into the world of marketing, career journeys, and personal growth. So sit back and prepare to get enlightened with your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. I'm thrilled to have my guest today, Mike Vacanti. He is a leader in the world of cultural transformation. He speaks around the world. He works with teams of all sizes, all types of organizations. He is a keynote speaker, a CEO advisor, and founder of the HumansFirst Club. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, Adam. Thank you.
Awesome. Excellent. So let's jump right in. Humans first. Hashtag humans first. Please tell everyone what that means to you and what that means to the world of cultural transformation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's something that has really grown. It's very grassroots. I was in Claude Silver's office last May, Adam, and Claude and I were having a conversation about what she's up to, and I had this high performance team program called I Am Team that I had been taking around working with companies and getting some feedback from Claude on that. As we talked about what was important to us and what the real mission is of what we're doing, she introduced me to Mark LeBusque over in Australia. Mark was coming over in October for a US visit. We decided to get together and do something together. And I said, why don't we just get a bunch of people in the room and talk about being human in today's workplace? And kind of chuckled at the ambiguity of that. And Mark LeBusque said, hey, mate, if you can pull that off, I'm all in. So October 18th, we ended up at Media Math on the 45th floor of the World Trade Center with a room full of people and had an experience. And in developing and launching that, there was a lot of people that raised their hands and said, Mike, what is that? What are you doing? I want to do it in my city, and I want to do it in my city, and soon, Adam, people were coming from literally all over the world asking what it is, and at that point, it wasn't anything but a single experience.
And Mike, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying I had a vision for where it could go. So we, put some things together, some structure, put together a manifest, if you will, to kind of get it started, what it would be like, how we would handle people and draw them in. But it's been more happening to me than me making it happen. Some fabulous people have jumped on board, and I just feel like the luckiest guy on the planet.
That's fantastic. And why don't we backtrack for a quick second and just give our listeners a quick overview of your background, a little bit of your history, and how the world of cultural transformation is coming to life right now.
Yeah, it's fun because it's evolving, and space for this conversation is really coming forward. I'll say that it's still in pockets, Adam. There's very little incentive for those in charge of large corporations, of many workplaces, to make the kind of adjustment that we're talking about. And when I say we, in the HumansFirst Club, but also even movements like conscious capitalism and the great messages that are coming from leaders like Bob Chapman and Gary Vaynerchuk, I think is changing the dialogue very much. Claude certainly is a big part of that. There's going to be resistance. I believe that the movement has started, but there's a lot of opportunity to bring more goodness, a higher level of consciousness into all of our business processes. And, it's an exciting time for that.
And I couldn't agree more. And I think hopefully you would agree with this statement that once companies really truly embrace putting humans first, whether it be their current employees and candidates and future prospects, it will affect the bottom line in a positive way. And companies that do not embrace this in today's world, they're going to fall behind and they'll see it affect their bottom line.
I absolutely agree. People are your business. For me, it's always been that simple. In all of the work that I've done, and Adam, I've been through 5 mergers and acquisitions, and man, had been dropped in people that didn't know me as the leader, and therefore the enemy, right? Because everybody's kind of in chaos and there's fear and doubt. What's going on? Where are you going to take the company? What's going to happen to my job? How's everything going to land? And having that people first focus, the human first focus, has just been the most natural way for me to do business. And so what I saw is my teams always performed exceptionally well, way above other units within the company during those mergers and acquisitions.
So let's peel back the curtain on that a little bit and let's take our listeners inside. When we talk about humans first, right? Let's break that down a little bit. What are some of the core principles and core values when a company really wants to truly embody and execute on that philosophy?
The belief of, given the opportunity, people will amaze you. And I truly believe that. In many situations, as soon as somebody walks in the door, we've hired them, right? You do the recruiting, so you know this. You're bringing them in with all the possibilities. They've shown their expertise, and their experience that they're bringing in the door, their knowledge, their education, their wisdom, their energy and ambition. And they walk in the door, and the first thing we do is start telling them how it works around here. And so, as soon as you've had your first cup of coffee, you're pushed into this assimilation process to become them rather than to become your best self. And to me, that is the core to all of this, is how do we raise people up to be their best selves rather than their best imitation of other people in the company.
And that hits on the the buzzword of late, which is culture fit. When you hear somebody say culture fit, what does that mean to you, Mike?
Well, culture fit's a really funny thing, right? We hear culture fit and we hear old boys club sometimes in the same sentence. It's like, it's necessary to have a great culture fit. This is a culture that's an old boys club. It's like, well, there you have it. Which one do you want? Because in this case, they're the same thing. We need to talk about culture contribution, and that opens up the door to diversity and inclusion. And when I say diversity and inclusion, it's not different colored M&Ms, and it's not peanut M&Ms or caramel M&Ms or chocolate M&Ms. It's, you know what I mean? And please, can I get all those M&Ms from Harvard, right? And I have diversity. It is thought diversity, experience diversity, diversity of left brain and right brain, right? And I need some creative people. I need some problem solvers, introverts, extroverts, readers, thinkers. Let's get some creativity and curiosity. Then we really have diversity. And I think that at the leadership level, diversity is really necessary because we have different attributes we bring in. And so much of it has been driven by old school machoism, right? Which I have to say is the other thing, Adam, I find really funny is when I hear people say, we need to bring humanity back into the workplace. I kind of scratch my head and just go, what era are we talking about, right? So I'm in my late 50s now. I don't remember that like some time ago. Are we going back to 1950s, get mom back in the kitchen, or is it suffrage, or is it some other, dark era? I'm not sure. I think that we need to embrace this as new frontier and make sure that we're raising women into leadership roles, that we have a good balance, that it isn't all of the same education. It's not all financially driven. And that is the essence of getting down to humans first, is it's all of us. And that makes the strongest company.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It really is the fabric of the company. It's those individual threads that come together, and not every thread is going to be the same color, the same thickness. I mean, you could use any analogy you want. I absolutely love it, Mike. I think that it's a tremendous mission, and it's needed right now. So let's dig down into it a little bit more. So when you're working with companies and organizations, how do you start? Is there an analysis process? Are you taking a look at the company as a whole, their culture, their recruitment process, their hiring process? Take us in a little bit deeper into that, how that works.
Yes. So, there's the HumansFirst Club, which is an event series, right? But in the consulting work I do, coming in with the I Am Team program, there has to be an aptitude to learn. If the company doesn't have curiosity or a belief that we can do better by doing new things, then it's not really a great fit. And it works inside large corporations. It works in companies where they have teams in many different locations, because each team, each location is going to operate somewhat autonomously, but there needs to be that common thread. And so we come in and work through a teaming platform that does focus on how do we engage, how do we perform, and what are we achieving. And the human side to that is getting living principles in place of how we operate ourselves inside an environment, how the team takes those same operating principles and orchestrates their teaming, their teamwork. And then how you move through those dimensions, which I separate in very necessarily. I think that a lot of times we look at performance and achievement being the same thing. And I think that's where companies really get caught. It's not. If something's not working, more of it is not going to get you through achievement. And so when you divide out the activity from the outcome, there's some really great truths that unfold that can be acted on.
And how do you measure success? Like, what are some of the KPIs? What are some of the metrics that a company could put in place to see if their efforts are paying off and working?
Yeah, I think that the overall achievement metrics of the company certainly have to be adhered to. Where the big challenge comes is, have we taken the time to allow and help everybody align their personal outcome, their personal objective, to that company objective? And what I found, Adam, is almost 100% of the time, no, that's never happened. We're supposed to look at the words on the wall and say, oh, those are my values and beliefs now because you wrote them on the wall. I'm not experiencing them, but I certainly have, intellectually grabbed
there.
Yeah. And then the company's outcome is supposed to be as fulfilling to me as it is to, a shareholder. And I think, along with learning and development being a complete bust for the 20 years that I've experienced it, I think the next biggest failure from connecting individuals to the corporation is allowing them to tie their personal objective to the corporate objective, and that will get the result done. So the overall, the OKRs, the KPIs, they fall into place. But if I can map my own course to that outcome, here's the challenge and why it's not often done, Adam, is that if I achieve all the things that I'm trying to achieve and I hit that high level and the company gets all that benefit, with the teamwork and everything else that we've achieved, I might hit a level now and saying, I need to jump off into another job or into another company. And ideally, the company would say, pat me on the back and say, that was awesome. What a great job. You do need to, step out and go
Spread
be
your
up.
wings, fly.
Instead, we want to hold people hostage, right? It's like, well, I let you go, but then I got a retention problem.
So that actually brings up an important point, employee retention, right? And I have my point of view on employee retention. I think ultimately it comes down to happiness when someone feels valued in their job, in their career, that they don't dread waking up every single day, that they enjoy.
Right.
They feel mission driven. They enjoy the people that they work with, and they feel that they're contributing to a greater good. Now, listen, not every company, not every product is going to save lives and plant trees and save the animals. So in your professional, opinion, what are some of the key fundamentals for companies to really improve retention?
There are a lot of ways to address that, and there are a lot of programs that can be put into place. For me, I really need to keep it simple so we can point in the right direction, Adam. And it's really two things. What I've discovered listening to people as we go through these workshops, and now through the HumansFirst Club, I've been able to sit in a lot of sessions and do discovery and listen to people's stories and what's important. I believe it comes down to growth, the ability to grow individually, and contribution, which is satisfaction of getting up and putting my thought and my heart and my effort into something. If the contribution is honored and I feel fulfilled and I believe it, that's a great thing. If the growth is continuing for me, I'm probably going to stay very involved, very engaged.
Absolutely, growth.
Those are the two for me.
So let's kind of switch it up a little bit. A lot of my listeners they're twofold. So I have, decision makers in the hiring process. I connected with CEOs, head of talent acquisition, both internally at companies and organizations, as well as recruiters. And then, obviously I work with candidates across the board at different levels. What are some questions that a candidate should ask during the interview process to get a good sense of a company's culture and mission? And one little piece of advice that I'll jump into, I always kind of advise candidates, try to show up. I mean, listen, always show up early for an interview, right? Like if you're not early, then you're late. But try to show up a little bit earlier, sit in the lobby and kind of get a sense of the vibe and feel of a company, right? I also tell people, go to the bathroom also, even if you don't have to go. Go to the bathroom and keep your ears open. Well, carefully. You don't want to listen to everything, but keep your ears open to hear if there's like talk going on in the bathroom, if people are generally in a good mood, right? Like you want to get a sense of the true culture. But in your opinion, what are some questions that candidates at all levels could ask to really get a good sense of a company's culture?
The first thing, and you touched on it in some of those comments, is what's the experience? And I think that's not often asked because we talk about what's the job. And instead of the job, it's really understanding how is that manager, the person interviewing you, how are others in the company experiencing the company? So we often, get into a conversation with, tell me about a day in the life of, while I'm here. That kind of goes that direction. But asking directly, how have you experienced this compared to, 1 year over the other, or when you first joined the company? And it allows that person to open up and tell a little bit about the story. You also get a sense then of where their energy level is on that, right? If they're just kind of telling the by the book story, then that's a bit of a red flag. If somebody jumps in and talks about how it's life-changing, then it's like, I'm going to take less money. I want to sign up.
Right, exactly. And I always urge candidates, ask, at some point in the interview, ask the interviewer, what do you love most about working here? And to your point, you could get a sense from that person's energy. Is it a canned answer? You could see their facial expressions. You could see their body language, and see if they're really happy too. Are they distracted? Like while you're talking to them, are they, looking at their phones? Are they looking down? Are they checking their email? And I think engagement goes a long way. So talk to us a little bit about, I want to dig into your consultancy practice as far as advising and training. Do you get deep into actually tactically working, with hiring managers or working with senior talent leadership on, the hiring process, the interview process? If you could talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on that.
I did early on, Adam, and it shifted away from there because the consulting work I was doing was kind of, big 90-day programs, and it did touch into some of those areas. And then I was asked by one of my clients, Microsoft actually, to shrink that stuff I was doing into a 1 or 2 day workshop so they could get me in front of more teams. And that kind of changed the whole dynamic of everything. And that is now becoming a book that I'm working hard to complete. But it's interesting because there's the talent acquisition and the recruiting world, right? They have to be some of the most optimistic people around. You talk about just like getting hammered and slapped in the face again and again and again. It's amazing. You see people in sometimes desperate and so, higher tension or emotional situations because they got to go to work, right? They have bills to pay and obligations and ambition. And so that keeping that positive and positioning while you're still trying to cultivate a relationship and pull information, right? So the BS meter is always on as well. And it's, so it's, I want to say that it can't be taken for granted. It's a tricky thing. However, because we get into a pattern of selection, our ability to discard without doing a lot of discovery becomes a bit of a challenge. So are we really finding the best candidates, or are we finding the best available candidates? And are we excluding somebody because our criteria, we're being a little bit too myopic or stringent on our criteria?
And I think you hit the nail on the head too. I think that it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you have your business objectives as a company, right? For every minute that an open role, for every day that an open role is unfilled, somebody else in the company is having to do double duty and step up into it. And maybe they're becoming overworked, exhausted, discontent, right? The loyalty and retention factor is going down. So that's why I always advise how important it is to fill a role quickly. But to your point, it has to be with the right person, because if you put someone in the role and you just rush to it and they're not right, you're going to be back in this process, 30 days later, that person's going to be, out, and you're going to have to start the whole recruitment process over again. And it's a complete waste. And I think it's critical too, to really try to avoid, biases and preconceived notions, and really do our best to really understand a candidate's true motivation, right? Yeah. Why are they looking to leave their job? What do they don't have in their current role? What are they unhappy about? That they're not getting, but also what are they happy about, and make sure that those elements are also continuing into this role as well, and making sure that you're touching on those attributes. And it's hard as a recruiter because we're under the gun, right? From a time perspective, from a cost perspective. And the other piece as well, and I'd love to get your points on this, the recruitment division within an organization is not a profit center. It's not generating profit. So a lot of times it's not getting the attention from an improvement, because there are opportunities to bring in folks like yourself to really help improve the process. So it's really working with senior leadership to understand that they need to invest. It's almost like baseball. It's like your farm team, right? Like you need to invest into your scouting process, because that's the future of your organization.
Yeah. And Adam, I love that you bring that up, because there are some great experts out there that guide companies through that. And some of them are my friends. And I say they're experts because, they're much better at it than I am, even though I've been through a lot of that and have a deep understanding, and I've, been through the organizations that are bringing in hundreds of people a year, and through transition. But the nice advantage that an outsider can bring into an organization is not to bring more process and not to bring more systematic thinking, but to help assess where are you in the execution of your own processes, right? So I don't believe there's a best way to do anything, except for if I need a surgical procedure, there's probably a better, and I really like the guys that do the safety checks on the airplanes to like follow the process. There's probably a best. Other than that, there's 100 ways to do things, and each company has their own flavor. And when you bring in an expert just to do an assessment of how well are you aligned to your own processes, there's a lot of discovery that kind of cleans up the whole, all the fringes, right? It brings back the focus from the margins, and that can be helpful. The thing that I like to encourage with companies is diversity, again, and I'm saying diversity, multifaceted diversity. Not roster moves, but mindset changes, right? So the Cleveland Browns do diversity, right? They go through, they change their roster all the time.
Coaches.
They haven't changed their mindset.
Right.
So you can make a lot of roster moves and it can hit a scorecard, and but we have to look at, is that really what we're doing, or are we trying to hire for growth mindset? And are we bringing in open minds into the company to accelerate possibilities rather than just the capabilities to perform at the standard levels?
100%. Mike, this has been a tremendous conversation. I certainly appreciate your time. What's next on the horizon for Mike Vacanti and HumansFirst? What's next for you?
Yeah, gosh, Adam, I feel like this is something happening to me as much as I'm just involved in making things happen. I've kind of woken up now to the hunger of and the importance then of having these conversations. So I think continuing to put the effort in to facilitate that. I see a couple of things happening is we'll continue to do live events and serve the markets where people are raising their hands and saying, yes, let's do it. So it looks like it's going to be London and Zurich and Dubai and Australia in this year. Possibly a couple of other countries will be in Canada. There's another 6 US cities lined up.
Awesome.
It's we'll put a community platform underneath that to try to connect all those people and get the like-hearted leaders and embrace everybody's ideas, let them exchange them together. It is going to be an open forum, less orchestrated, less control. I like to think of it as a playground. So it's trying to put some underpinnings to that to allow people to continue the dialogue, and just facilitating that playground. Do discovery, keep growing, serve the hunger, and hopefully continue to lift others.
Love it. Mike, I couldn't agree more, and I love your mission, and it ties in a lot with my philosophies and what I'm trying to do. I always like to end each interview with asking, what is your North Star? What do you turn to when things are great, when things are not so great? What is your North Star, Mike?
Yeah, I appreciate that at this season in my life, right? After doing 5 mergers and acquisitions, and even in the days, Adam, where I would be in a job interview and they would say, Mike, I'm looking at all this history. You kind of look like a job hopper. It's like, oh, job hopper. Those are underachievers. This is my 4th career.
Love it.
So the North Star has changed, but for me, it is really about contribution and doing that with high energy that's aligned with this sense of serenity. And if I can get that excitement and that serenity to match, that's kind of the formula for happiness. I'm better to my wife and my kids and my neighbors and the community if I can push for that state. So I really think it's staying in that best place to help others, because that's all that's important to me, in this season of my life.
Awesome. And I love calling it seasons.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm about to hit a new season next week for me. And I think I've hit a big turning point in my life in the last couple of months. And it's synergy and it's karma, and it's the energy that you put out into the universe comes back to you. And it's just incredible to see that happen. Mike, how could folks get in touch with you? How could folks find out more about Humans First?
Yes. mjvacanti.com is my site, and all my contact information is on there. That's a great way to reach out. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. HumansFirst Club is www.humansfirst.club. And there's a form in there. Please reach out. That comes right into my inbox, and I'll do my best to respond. And, Twitter, and there's a Facebook page for MJ Vacanti as well. So I love being in conversations. I'm doing my best to respond, and I'm having so much joy of all these people that have reached out, and the learning that they're bringing into my life it's been pretty profound.
I love it. And for everyone tuning in, I'll have the links to Mike's contact information when we get the podcast up. Mike, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Incredible conversation, really enlightening and digging deep into transformational cultural change. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.
Love the work you're doing, Adam. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wisdom is forever, but for us it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode jam-packed with more incredible humans. For more info, please visit www.nhptalentgroup.com.